Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Commodity TV and a new edition of our online interview series. And finally, we made it. We talked to Aurania Resources, and Dr. Keith Barron, the president and CEO, is here with us. Hey, Keith, how are you? Long time no see.
Yes. Yeah, here I am.
Very good to see you, and you are in good shape. That's the most important thing here. I like it really a lot. And I also want to say I'm a shareholder in the company since many, many years. And also, I thank God I bought at a low level, which was a good idea. Stock is now, still between 60 and almost 70 cents, which is great. So we really want to get an update for you from you because you had some very interesting news, I must say. Let's start first with Corsica. What's going on there?
Corsica. Well, I got to tell you, it's the damnedest project that I've ever come across in 42 years of working in the industry. It's two artificial beaches, which are composed of waste that came originally out of an asbestos mine, long, long since defunct and abandoned. And the waste contains a mineral called awarenite, which is a natural nickel iron alloy. It has the same composition as stainless steel, this mineral, right? Nickel and iron together. And the stuff was recorded way back in 1957 and 58, and again in 68 by the French Geological Survey. They bemoaned the fact at the time that the grade of the rock
Mhm.
out of the open pit asbestos mine was low in nickel, about 0.2% nickel, which at the time was of not of interest because the nickel price, of course, was well under $1 a pound, so you couldn't make any money. However, in this report, there was one paragraph that was very intriguing, talking about a beach at near the village of Albo, Albo, which had the asbestos waste on it, and the nickel contents in this material were much more elevated than than the stuff at the mine, right? So I was very intrigued about this, and I got online and I looked up Google Earth, and I looked at that beach. I didn't see a hell of a lot that was interesting, but an adjacent beach, well, just a kilometer or two away at a place called Nonza, there's a beach which is 1.3 kilometers long and it's 350 meters wide at its widest. And I can see these black squiggles on it. And anybody can do this themselves. They can look at the Google Earth images and they'll see the black squiggles. And I thought, gosh, what are these things? They look like what we would term in the business a black sand placer, a placer accumulation of heavy minerals on the surface. So I told Stefan Anserme, who's the guy who originally found the reports, I told him about this. He got very excited, jumped in his Jeep, drove all the way down to Marseille, went across on the ferry to northern Corsica, and the next day was sending me photographs of a black sand placer on the beach. And he sampled this thing. He took about, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 kilos of the sand. You could pick it up with an ordinary magnet, and it's highly, highly magnetic stuff. And he brought it back to Switzerland, and I had it in my front garden. I had a gold pan and a big tank of water, and I was washing it like you would pan gold. And I ended up with a concentrate of this mineral called awarenite, which, when it is fresh and untarnished, looks silvery in color. When it becomes tarnished, it looks a little bit yellow. And I took this concentrate to Canada, took it to a laboratory, had it assayed, and it came back 50.4% nickel with appreciable contents of cobalt and copper in it. I think, if I remember rightly, about 0.7% cobalt and 0.4% copper. It's in the press release anyway. I can't remember the exact numbers, but significant. And I thought to myself, well, Jesus, if I can go ahead and just pan this, this is about as low tech as it gets. This is what the gold miners in California were doing, though they would do it with
Totally.
a tin pan, right? I was doing it with a plastic one. And certainly, if you can recover it that way, then you could recover it commercially in an operation. And, I looked at this beach and I kind of did a back of the envelope. I'm not going to mention the number here because the regulators wouldn't like it.
Mhm.
But I came up with a number that was interesting in terms of tons of nickel contained on this beach, right? Now, here's what's happened. So, the mine started operating in 1926. It closed in 1965. But after around 1946, they started throwing the waste from the mine into the Mediterranean.
So just
They
like
just
down the
threw
beach.
it over the cliffs into the sea, right?
Crazy.
Probably the best place for it because nobody's going to breathe in asbestos fibers when it's under the salt water or in the salt water. So, anyway, what happened over time, and we're talking 50, 60 years, 70 years, whatever, right back to the time of the Second World War, this material has migrated through the tides and through something called longshore drift and has moved down the coast with the prevailing currents and filled in two ports. One is the port of Albo, and the other one's the port of Nonza. Before that, you could take a boat right up to the rocks on the shoreline. And now, in the case of Nonza, the beach extends 350 meters from the rocks out into the sea, right? And so, what happened is that the tides and the winter storms and everything have acted just like a natural ball mill, an attrition mill, and smashed up the material. In fact, I've got a piece of it right here. Look at
Mhm.
this. See how rounded that is?
So-
That's a piece of the waste, and it would have had very, very sharp edges when it went into the sea, right?
Wow.
But the sea has rounded it. It's a rounded pebble now, knocked off the edges, and reduced the size of this. This might have been much larger at the beginning, and converted it, crushed it down to sand. So the material on the beach and these black sand accumulations is magnetite, which is iron oxide, and a werowite, which is nickel iron, right?
Mhm.
In a combination, depending on where you're on the beach, there's different percentages, right? But the percentage of a werowite, the nickel mineral, is um, let's just say, because I haven't released any numbers on this yet, but it's certainly compelling, right? And so, uh, what you can do, you can go to the beach today and you can take a magnet, just an ordinary house magnet. We used one of these rare earth magnets, which is very strong, and you can pick the material up. So the material has been broken up by the action of the waves and the tides and everything, and now it's essentially a sand. What we want to do now, these sand particles smaller than 1 millimeter are either just grains of magnetite or just grains of awarenite. Both of them we want to extract, right? Now, anybody who's watching this must realize, understand this. That stuff that I had in the pan, you could dry it, bag it, ship it. It's exactly the sort of stuff that would be suitable to go in a nickel matte furnace. Outokumpu's got one in Finland, Boliden's got one in Sweden, and you make stainless steel from it, right? You need the iron and you need the nickel, right? You would add a little bit of chromium to it. That's for those guys to do, and then you have material that's suitable. It can go straight into the furnace.
Mhm.
So what we can do, we can just process this stuff. We can put it in those big bulk bags, those great big white bags you see that can hold up to a ton, and ship the damn stuff, and then collect the check.
Best thing ever.
So I probably a lot of your people are not aware, but I have a business already. It's not within Arania. It's a private company that I own that recovers sapphires and gold in the state of Montana in the U.S. And I've been doing it for 9 years, and I know everything top to bottom about heavy mineral recovery because gold, of course, is it's a heavy mineral. It's one of the heaviest, and sapphire has got a density of 4 times water, so they're very easy to recover. But I know all the equipment, right? And I can tell you right now that the extraction and processing of the sand on this beach would be very low cost. Very low cost. It would be a typical alluvial operation. What we would do is leave the pebbles behind. So rocks like this, we're not crushing them. We're not doing anything with them. We're just leaving them behind so that the locals still have their beach. But there'll be more pebbles there than well, there'll be less sand. I mean, over time, these pebbles will get converted back to sand again because Mother Nature doesn't give up, and the tides wash in every day, and et cetera, et cetera. But we're only interested in the sand fraction, and we want to recover the magnetite, which is iron oxide. I mean, if you've got high grade iron oxide, that's essentially um, that's even better than the stuff that they're mining in Western Australia for to make steel, right?
Mhm.
And of course, and the other thing is the Awarawite. So what we could do is just dry it, bag it, ship it, and collect a check. However, if we wanted to do value add, then we would work towards getting 100% or as close as possible Awarawite concentrate. And in that concentrate, we would extract through a process called hydrometallurgy, we would extract the cobalt and the copper because I've run the numbers and it may be possible that there's enough cobalt that it would pay for the whole operation, all of the
Wow.
extraction. So it comes as a bonus, a byproduct, right?
Mhm. Okay, yeah, that sounds really compelling story, to be honest, and I fully get it, absolutely. So, let's say, where are the hurdles? What would you anticipate you need? Let's say, to we talk about 20 million, 50, 100 million, 200 million dollars, just a guessing. I know it's a forward-looking statement, and you do not have the exact numbers. Just for us, an idea,
Yeah.
and how will it? And do you own already the whole stuff?
Yeah, well, it's in the process of being permitted. We're doing the environmental studies right now, which is what we have to do. So we're just really we had to get this other stuff done with the communities, and we're about to sign the contract, or maybe even we signed the contract with the environmental company. We would have to do some drilling on the beach, possibly some bulk sampling and lots of studies. Now, two things that are very critical to mention here. First of all, there is no asbestos on this beach now.
Mhm.
So, what has happened is that the material, when it was dumped over the cliffs, it had maybe 2-3% asbestos in it. But asbestos is brittle and it's soft. And what has happened over time is that it's been broken up by the wave action, and we think it's actually dissolved or it's sunk to the bottom or whatever, but it does not show up on the beach.
Mhm.
So, and the government has done repeated testing. I mean, tourists walk on this beach sometimes. So, the beach is safe. I want to emphasize this. There is no asbestos on the beach. Okay. It's very important. And we're not crushing any rock and we're not liberating any asbestos. So that's very important to know. The other thing to know is that this beach today is naturally leaching into the seawater heavy metals, nickel, cobalt, and chromium, all three of which are considered to be heavy metal poisons. And we're eliminating it. We're cleaning it up.
So that's it. You would do, let's call it the mining for environment.
Well, yes, and you can walk on this beach and you will see no sea life. There's no barnacles, there's no crabs, there's no snails, there's no limpets, there's nothing washing up on the beach. It is sterile, it is completely dead,
Mhm.
and there's not even any seaweed. And that's because of the heavy metals. And there's already been studies done on it. I mean, the fish that are offshore of this beach are all elevated in heavy metals, and you wouldn't really want to eat them.
Mhm.
Um, and but we're not going to 100% eliminate the problem by removing the sand. But sand, because a sand grain has got more of a surface area than this pebble does in terms of volume to surface area ratio, it has more area to leach, and it's more of a problem.
Mhm.
So, we can't wave a magic wand and get rid of everything, and the government or the local people don't want us to take away the beach entirely. They're used to it now. It's been there for 50 years or whatever. But I think we will cut down on the amount of heavy metals that's leaching into the water. So that's an important thing. And certainly the process that we're thinking of doing is not going to add to the problem at all. It's
Mhm.
just a simple heavy mineral recovery, like you see in gold placers around the world, some of which are mining offshore. Um, Diamond, off the coast of Namibia, they've been recovering diamonds for, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 years, using jigs and things, same sort of heavy mineral recovery. They do this for mineral sands in places like Kenya. RTZ's got a big project. They're recovering rutile. There's nothing magical about any of this.
Mhm.
It's well known and simple technology. Now, you asked me, what is the entry level to get this done, right? Are we looking at 100 million bucks? No. So, um, okay. What I can tell you, I'm not going to give you a number on uh, on Corsica because I can't. But the project that I have in Montana in the U.S., I have a plant there that's capable of doing 200 cubic meters an hour processing, and the entire plant, including the installation, cost me about 15 million US.
Okay, here we go.
Right?
Mhm.
So that is the order of magnitude that we're talking about.
Okay. So let's say for sure below 40, $50 million. I think that's
Correct.
a measurable number. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Super. So let's guess the permitting moves forward. Could you start production by end of next year already?
Well, hopefully, the French government has got a directive to find critical metals.
Hmm.
Uh, Within France is even better than the outside French territories. They have been getting a lot of their nickel from New Caledonia, but because there's an independence movement there, they've closed that down. So where are they getting their nickel from? Well, 45% of it's coming from Russia. Russia actually is supplying the whole of of Europe, the whole of the EU, with 45% of their nickel, right?
Exactly. And we know what Mr. Putin said last week, right? Like uranium, nickel, and something else. Chromium, I think,
Yeah,
also is now on the banned list for the West, right?
yeah. You put sanctions on me, I'm going to stop the supply of nickel, right? Tit for tat.
Yeah.
So, and then what happens after that? Then car companies like Fiat and Volkswagen and Citroën and Renault and all these ones who are producing electric cars have a problem because
Mhm.
nickel and cobalt are intrinsic in electric batteries. You
Mhm.
can't build an electric battery without them, right? Lithium is important too, but so is nickel.
Mhm.
So, if we're going to have the green revolution, and remember, in Europe, they have signed it into law that no more petrol driven cars after 2030. I don't know how the hell they're going to do it. I mean, it's only
35.
6 years from now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2035, is it?
Mhm.
Still, still not attainable,
Yeah.
but I know that they're buying a lot of electric cars in Scandinavia, and they've got a big program there. Um, so I think hell, I'm an environmentalist like everybody else. I don't want to breathe in car pollution.
Mhm.
But it's people have to realize that if they're going to do this, they have to have the copper for the wiring, and they have to have the nickel and the cobalt to make the batteries, and you have to extract it from somewhere, and it's coming out of the ground.
Mhm.
So that's a reality. We're not going to get it by uh, some crazy hocus pocus coming from recycling.
Yeah. It's
It's
not
uh,
what
it's just not possible. Yeah,
That's
it
right.
has to
No,
come from a primary
that sounds
source.
like an interesting game plan. And I think you also sold your Peruvian interests to Palomina, right?
Yes, we did. Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
That
So
was
we've
also one of
we've
the
taken.
reasons probably that you can concentrate now more on Corsica. And yeah, we have to talk about Ecuador also.
Yeah, well, we all are human beings. We only have so much bandwidth
Mm.
that we can do. And, we weren't getting any value in the market from the Peruvian asset at all. And it would have been a real stretch for us to go ahead and populate that uh, with geologists and all the rest of it. So we've let it go. We're retaining a royalty, and good luck to them. And I hope that they find a mine. So in Ecuador, we're still working away there. We've got two crews in the field today,
Mhm.
and the anaconda mapping at Awacha just got finished about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks. So that's done, and there's some samples that are in the lab right now. Um, the the IP survey will be done at Kiriawi, and it was delayed for a little while. It's kind of a crazy story, but well, maybe we don't have to go into it here. But
Mm.
well, maybe we do. Um, we were the indigenous people who live in the area were approached by a phony NGO, and the NGO said that if you keep the company out, we'll give you $1,000. And then they came back a week later and said, "Yeah, but we need an administration fee of $400." And three of the villages paid it. Yeah, and of course, what happened is these guys vanished, and ah, it's like a scam. It's like a variant on the Nigeria scams that come out all the time, right? And so that delayed us for a little while because one of the communities, and thank goodness they didn't spend the money, but they were waiting to see if the other communities got their money. Of course, they didn't. And We weren't banned from working, but it was difficult. We couldn't do because we wanted to hire the the local people from the community to do the line cutting for the IP survey, and they weren't available to us. So that got delayed by about 6 weeks or so. It's on track now. We've signed the IP contract, so that will go ahead. And I expect that we'll have the results by Christmas. And the plan would be to uh, have it interpreted, look at the targets, and potentially drill in January.
Mhm. Okay.
Um,
But I also saw that you are investigating visible gold, which you found at Crunchy Hill, and I think Crunchy Hill was the thing which, yeah, first was really running, right?
yeah, yeah, we found some epithermal veins at Crunchy Hill, and we found a lot of alteration and a lot of sulfides on surface in the rocks. We drilled it. We drilled the anomaly where we thought that the goodie zone would be, and we got nothing. We got no gold. We did hit some epithermal style veins. Now, the gold occurs in the saprolite, which is the soil profile above the bedrock. And the first samples we took, we could see the gold. We could pan the gold out of the saprolite, which is like a clay. But when it went to the lab, we got nothing back. And that's because it's very, very nuggety and it didn't get represented in the splits that the lab did that went in for fire assay. And so we did it again using the new technology proton assay, and we got appreciable gold in those samples. And since then, we've been trying to track down the source of the gold. But up until now, I must say it's eluded us, and that's the way it is. Sometimes it could be washed out of the sandstone up above Crunchy Hill and not even come out of the bedrock.
Mhm.
We just don't know. But at some point, we're when the time comes to do the IP survey at Curyawi, we must focus on that
Mhm.
instead of running after wild goose chases.
Mhm.
And and then we'll have some hard IP targets to drill, and we'll see what we get. Now, the previous work that we've done on Curyawi, um, we've done fluid inclusions from the veins, and we know that the veins are high salinity veins, but they're low temperature. So what we think is that um, the uh, the material came up from very deep, the hot water, probably carrying gold, and that gold dropped out at depth somewhere because the fluids cooled, and when
Mhm.
they cooled, they're no longer able to carry the metal load. They continue up towards the surface, and they form hot springs and geysers and mud pools and all that good stuff. And things like arsenic, antimony, and mercury are able to travel much, much further up through the rocks up to the surface, the paleo surface, not the present surface, but the original land surface in hot springs and that. But there are many, many places in the world. Like I'll give you, for instance, a place called Wairaki in North Island, New Zealand, where they're producing steam to 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 turn turbines to generate electricity. That's a geothermal plant. It's been there for a long, long, long time, and they have something called a throttle plate to control the steam that's coming out of the ground, out of the hole. And it's like a choke plate, so that the steam it's a regular flow, and they don't have suddenly have an explosion of steam and it blows out all the infrastructure that's on top. Right? They have a blowout. So this throttle plate, one of them, they replaced it. This is going back about 30 years, I guess, but a person who was looked at this saw that it was covered in scale, and it was kind of a brassy colored scale on on the steel throttle plate. So he cut a chunk out of the plate with a saw and had it analyzed, and it contained 5% gold.
Oops.
So what has happened there is that the steam and the hot water are carrying gold within them, but when you drop the temperature of the steam, it instantly precipitated on the walls of the pipe and on this throttle plate, right? The same sort of thing happens naturally in the ground every time there's a geyser eruption. If it's in the right place, right territory where, some places, I mean, you won't find it in Hawaii because the hot water is not carrying gold, but in other places in the world like New Zealand,
Mm.
and I mean, Fruta del Norte is exactly like this, right? So the gold will precipitate, but it will be at depth. It won't be at the surface, right? So it's you have to drill this thing, and we're expecting that it would have been precipitated with sulfides, and that there's a conductor at depth, which we'll find with the induced polarization survey,
Mhm.
and then we pop it.
Okay, super. So that means we will have a lot of news flow, of course, because of Corsica also and Ecuador. That is great. I saw that you also converted $2 million of debentures into shares. So if I look at the share price today, that was a nice deal, but it shows also that you are really convinced, right?
Well, I kind of have the inside track, and I'm a believer, right?
Yeah,
If I wasn't a
absolutely.
believer, I wouldn't have done it. Handed over
Yeah,
a couple $1 million.
yeah.
I was delighted to do it, and the last private placement, we did it at 20 cents at a 40 with a 45-cent warrant. The warrants way into the money right now. Everyone who participated in that is happy, 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 and that's it's a wonderful thing. It's great.
Mhm. Okay, super. That sounds great. So yeah, from that perspective, I would say everything looks really, really interesting, I must say, and it will be a very informative next, 3 to 6 months is probably. And I have the
Sure.
feeling we speak quite soon, Keith.
I suspect so. And hopefully next time I'll get over to Switzerland and we can share a schnapps afterwards and celebrate.
That sounds like a great thing, or at least a beer. Schnapps is not so mine, but that's okay. Super.
Or
No,
a
Keith,
beer.
thank you very much, really, for
Yeah.
that. And I wish you well. And yeah, let's talk soon.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Jochen, for the opportunity. Take care.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. Keith Barron, the president and CEO of Aurania Resources. And yeah, you heard it. Things are really progressing here. Corsica is the new baby. I think really interesting because the stuff is laying on the surface and you just have to do it right. And Keith has the expertise through his sapphire mine. And so from that perspective, everything looks really, really interesting. That's why I'm a shareholder. Probably also that's one of the reasons why, as Keith alluded to, he converted again $2 million of debt into the stock. And I would say really check out Aurania Resources. This is now the real big thing, really moving. 2025 should be their year. So thanks for watching us and bye bye from Switzerland.